Hello, my name is David Young, and this is my ENME 351 Lab 5. Let's start off with the hardware. You see that digital pin 7 goes to the positive strip on my breadboard, which jumps to the resistor, which then jumps to analog pin 5 to record the data, and which also is connected to a capacitor, which is connected to ground. Better view of that. There you go. This is the simulation. This is what pops up. This is the graph for the simulation. And to explain it a little bit, we see that the blue line is the 10 kilo ohm resistor, which hits a max value around 0.6 seconds. And the orange line is a 10 kilo ohm resistor, which hits a max value around 5.5 seconds. A little bit of the code and the values. Moving on to the Arduino processing code. This is, up at the top, you see that I set a couple of constants for the code. And in the setup portion, here, I set pin 7 as the output, analog pin 5 as the input. I initialize pin 7 as low. I set a baud rate, and I allow a 5-second delay for the capacitor to discharge. In the loop here, I set the cycle time to 10 seconds, the tau value, and I have a start time to stamp the start of the cycle. Moving on, I have the while loop that cycles the voltages from 0 to 5 volts. This here records the input and output of the data and saves it as a string. Here, prints the output of the data to the serial monitor and sets a sampling rate of tau divided by 50. And below you see that I switch the VN values from high to low, and I will upload that and run the serial monitor for you, and you'll see that it goes from sets the in to 1023, and you'll see the capacitor go up to 1023, and once it reaches its value it'll go down to 0 and the capacitor will discharge. And that's it, discharging. Moving on to the processing, let me X out this. Moving on to the processing code, you see I set my baud rate here, and over here I set up my legend, including my VN, my VC, which is commented. Down below, you can see here that I set the text values for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 volts. I set the text size and I set the fill to black. Moving on, I have the graph. These are the grid lines for the graph, and they're incremented starting from 550 all the way down to 40 so that I get a nice even line on the values, and this is the code running. You can see my 0 to 5 volts, my VN, and my VC legend, and you'll see that that's the capacitor charging up, and then in a sec you'll see it discharging, and that this is the 100 kilo ohm resistor. You can also tell that it's very nicely over the center line, and that also occurs at the top at 5 volts. Up at the top at 5 volts. Moving on to my analysis. You can see this is the 10 kilo ohm resistor, and it reaches a value at around 0.6 seconds when it's fully charged. And my 100 kilo ohm resistor, this is the data for the 100 kilo ohm resistor, and it reaches a maximum value at about 5 seconds, maybe a little bit more. I might get a better value if I zoom in a little bit, but it's about 5 seconds, which was what we saw in our simulation for earlier. So we can see that the simulation matches the actual values in the MATLAB code. And this is my ENME 351 Lab 5, and I hope you have a good day.